Hey there everybody, Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. We are here for a long-awaited, well-deserved part 2 of my top progressive rock albums of the 70s show. I've been talking about it for a while. I mentioned it on that show that I was going to do an underground version of that show. First of all, I want to thank everybody for their feedback and their views on the my top progressive rock albums of the 70s video, which is the #1 most viewed video on this channel. And it's been surging like crazy of late, considering that the video itself is like 4 or 5 months old. So thanks to everybody who stumbled upon it. Thanks for all of you who have subscribed to the channel since you've seen that video. A lot of great feedback. And there's been a lot of feedback, especially for folks wanting a part 2 where we talk about some of the more lesser known bands. All right. So while I was kind of been plotting to do this show, I realized how ridiculously immense my CD collection is of bands that would fall into this category. So I may just do this show in waves. We'll see. Because I started pulling stuff out that kind of fit into the framework of what we're talking about here. And it started to get ridiculously large. And then I said, you know what? I'm not going to do an hour-long show talking about 75 different albums and bands and what have you. I'm going to do kind of like a sprinkling here of some of the best stuff that I pulled out. And then what I may do in future shows is I may cover some of these vintage prog bands of the 70s, but do them by country. So like I especially saw a lot of Italian bands that I was starting to pull, and I'm like, you know what? I probably could do a show just on Italian prog from the 70s, and probably could do it, you know, for Germany and England and so on and so forth, US. So I may do something like that in the future. There's so many things I could do with a show like this. So we'll see what happens. So I'm going to go through what I pulled for today. If you guys want to put in the comments section some feedback on others, you know, very notable but underground releases from the 70s, feel free to do that. Chances are I got them, and I can do them on a future show. Or maybe I don't have them. I don't know. I got a pretty extensive collection, so we'll see. Hey, if you can turn me on to stuff that I've never heard before, even better. So anyway, first bit of business. I want to give some credit to a band that should have been on that first show because they are a favorite of mine, and they're a much more commonly known prog band, and somehow inexplicably I left them off that show and felt really bad afterwards about doing that. A bunch of you pointed it out. So I want to give some props to that great British art rock band Renaissance. My favorite album from them is Turn of the Cards. Again, they don't deserve to be on this show. They should have been on the other show, but I want to lead off with them because they've got a handful of albums that are just so important to the history of progressive rock. You know, Annie Haslam's vocals and the wonderful acoustic guitar, majestic piano, great lead bass lines, a wonderful band. Scheherazade and Other Stories was another one I thought about choosing. Ashes Are Burning is another favorite of mine, but I just really like Turn of the Cards. I mean, you know, when it's got Mother Russia, Black Flame running hard on it, kind of hard to not choose that one, right? So anyway, Renaissance, kicking it off. Not underground, but should have been on my more mainstreamy show, if you want to call it mainstream. All right, another one that a couple of you mentioned that I think also deserves it. Probably should have been on that show as well. I'm talking about Steve Hillage, guitar player from Gong, Fish Rising. Pretty damn wonderful album right here. Again, not a big seller. Steve Hillage is not necessarily a household name. Maybe to prog fans he is. But that's really great space rock stuff. All right, a really dark one from, I believe it was 1977. The debut from Univers Zero. This is dark and menacing as prog gets, folks. This is pretty much off the beaten path. Very different from your typical symphonic, you know, like British style progressive rock. I believe these guys are from Belgium. Great stuff. You use a lot of different instruments and some horns and brass and woodwinds and keyboards and things. Present is another good band too, from the same area. In fact, both bands are kind of intertwined. Really good stuff there. Here's one, really like this a lot. The British band. Don't hear about them too often. Band called Gnidrolog. I hope I'm saying that right. Gnidrolog. Lady Lake. Look at that cool ass cover, right? Pretty cool, kind of quirky Jethro Tull Gentle Giant-ish. All right, only had a couple albums. In fact, they're notable for their bass player, one Mars Cowling, who would later come to fame, of course, in Pat Travers' band. Passed away not that long ago. Big loss. All right, the first of a few Italian prog albums I'm going to talk about here today. There's a lot more I could have picked here and talked about. So many, in fact. I have so many very obscure, great prog albums from Italy from the 70s. So, like I said, I think I'm going to do a whole other show just on Italian prog. But anyway, Musea Rosenbach. Self-titled. I'm sorry, Zarathustra. Zarathustra. Tongue-tied today. Anyway, fantastic. You know, that 70s the Italian prog from the 70s was just quite bombastic with all the classic vintage keyboards and kind of those operatic Italian romantic style vocals. Great guitar work. Just a lot of the bands had a lot of similar characteristics, but they all sounded completely different. You know, PFM and Banco and Osana and Musea Rosenbach and Il Balletto di Bronzo. I mean, there's so many of them. Over to Sweden, Kaipa, Inget Nit Under Solen, their second album. Great stuff. If you love vintage Yes, you'll love Kaipa. Roine Stolt from the Flower Kings. This is the band he was in back in the 70s when he was pretty much a teenager. Really, really good symphonic prog. How about Canada, huh? All right. Harmonium, Leptide. I'm not really sure how they say that. This is a great one. Vintage keyboards, wonderful, soothing, romantic vocals. Awesome stuff. One of the best albums from the 70s from as far as Canadian prog is concerned, in my opinion. Really, really good one. How about Hatfield in the North, right? Their self-titled debut. Love this one. Got to have a little Canterbury on this show, right? Absolutely. Quirky, jazzy stuff. Love it. I think I mentioned Happy and the Man on the first show, but I didn't actually talk about them. These guys are kind of crossing that line between obscure and more mainstream because they were actually signed to a label for their first two albums. Okay, Crafty Hands, classic. Their debut is also red hot. You know, these guys were mostly instrumental, but they did have some vocals. Wonderful, wonderful keyboards and guitar work here. Stanley Whitaker, what a guitar player. Really, really great stuff. A band that probably should have been huge. Didn't quite happen that way, but most fans think very highly of them. Here's a great band from Texas. I remember the first time I got this. It's kind of an unknown band that, you know, recorded some stuff, played some live dates, but never actually released anything officially. Back when they were, you know, active. This band is called Hands. This was later released on the Shroom Productions label. Really, really great album. If you love Gentle Giant with like little bits of Kansas, maybe even some Happy the Man, really good stuff. Quirky arrangements and great melodies and nice keyboards and guitar. Awesome stuff. From Britain, Gryphon, Red Queen to Gryphon 3. Medieval progressive rock at its finest with bassoon and woodwinds and cool acoustic and electric instruments. Really good. David Greenslade and his band Greenslade. Again, if you love like Yes, bits of Crimson, the Moody Blues, and Genesis. Really, really great stuff. Awesome keyboards. How about Gracious? Their self-titled as well as This Is Gracious, their second one. If you love Mellotron, tons of it here. Little bits of Moody Blues and spots. You know, now that I think about these guys, I didn't pull some Barclay James Harvest. Got to have some of them, right? How about Gong? Gazeuse. Complete with Alan Holdsworth in tow. Gotta love it. Canterbury meets little bits of fusion and space rock. Speaking of space rock, once again I forgot to pull some Hawkwind. Anyway, Hawkwind. Definitely. Hawkwind's got so many albums in the 70s that are amazing. I may just do a show on the history of Hawkwind. Why don't I just do that one these days? Yeah, there you go. How about Frumpy? Frumpy 2. God, I love this album. It's proggy. It's got bits of hard rock. It's got blistering guitar solos. There's a extended wah-wah guitar solo here that is just absolutely mind-blowing. Love this album. Great keyboards, really good vocals that if you didn't like look at the liner notes, you would assume that she was a he, but great vocals nonetheless. Beggars Opera, Waters of Change. If you like proto-prog, the really early prog, it's kind of hard rockish, but also kind of proggy, before prog was actually labeled as prog. This is great. Hammond organs, great vocals, ripping guitars. Dig this one a lot. They actually have a couple good ones. Same for these guys. Another English band, kind of proto-prog. Cressida, Asylum. Pick any one of theirs. Pretty damn good. Wonderful Hammond organ. Not sure if it's this one or the next one's got bits of mellotron on it, but very cool. Great guitar, bluesy guitar work too. Good vocals. Here's one from here in the U.S. We really haven't talked about much U.S. stuff except for Happy the Man, right? How about Cathedral? Stained Glass Stories. Not to be confused with the doom metal band from England, Cathedral, who came much later on. I believe these guys were from Connecticut, if I'm not mistaken. This is awesome. If you love like vintage Peter Gabriel era Genesis mixed with some early Yes with a little King Crimson thrown in, mellotron galore, Moogs and Hammond and acrobatic guitar work and really cool, quirky vocals. This is a legendary, legendary album, which I love to death. How about we go over to Germany for some kind of fusion-y prog? Goblin, who are like well known for doing soundtracks to, they're Italian, not German. Well-known soundtracks to Italian horror movies. How about their non-soundtrack album, Roller? This is great stuff. Killer keyboard work on there. Moog galore. How about Dutch band? I love these guys. In fact, I haven't listened to this in so long, or any of their 3 albums. Finch, okay? Beyond Expression. These guys were a force of nature. Killer bass player, killer guitar player, killer drummer. They added a keyboard player, threw in some synths and Hammond and mellotron to the mix. Lengthy tune. This only has 3 tracks, a 20-minute long, 9 minutes, and 14 and a half. Wonderful stuff. I gotta go listen to this. That's the great thing about doing shows like this, because you start pulling stuff out of your collection. You're like, oh my God, I haven't listened to that album in 10 years. Gotta fucking do it immediately. So definitely with that. Fireballet, Night on Bald Mountain, another great one. Man, there's some just killer obscure stuff that's out there, you know? It's just amazing how much cool prog there was all over creation in the 70s that like most people never heard before, you know, unless you're really into this stuff. How about, let's go back up to Canada, Black Noise by FM. Nash the Slash and his crazy electric violin. Very cool. It was actually electric mandolin, I'm sorry. Or maybe he played both. God, I don't even remember. Let's see. Electric violin and mandolin. There we go. Both. I got a feeling it was both. This is a really cool album. Really fun, kind of poppy album, but it's got some great prog stuff on there. All right. Fantasy, Paint a Picture. Another really cool, obscure prog band. Yeah, this is an old Japanese. These guys were actually on Polydor. Signed to a major label. This is a Japanese import. Very cool. Another one really near and dear to my heart. Okay, this is another. If you love mellotron, okay, and you like kind of like the really great vocal melodies matched with mellotron and Hammond and some other keyboards and cool guitar work, Garden Shed by England. This is a obscure symphonic prog classic, folks. This one kind of sits for me next to that Cathedral album as like the holy grails of like obscure unknown prog. Really, really, really good. If you haven't heard it, you need to. How about some more Canterbury stuff? Could have picked any of their albums, right? I picked The Polite Force, of course, talking about Egg. All right, another very notable Canterbury band. Kind of avant-garde, kind of fusion-y, jazzy, you know, classical type stuff on here. Really, really good stuff. More U.S. obscurities. Easter Island, Now and Then. You recognize that, right? Yeah. Very cool. How about Earth and Fire? God, this one's got a couple of their albums on it. Atlantis is the one that I was thinking of, so I believe that's this first one there. Very, very cool. I believe Earth and Fire were British, if I remember correctly. Not quite sure. More Dutch stuff. In fact, I grabbed both of their albums. Dice. Actually, no, I think they were Dutch, or were they Swedish. Sorry. Swedish prog. Dice. Okay, you got their self-titled debut as well as the 4 Riders of the Apocalypse. I pulled both of them. I said, screw it. I'm going to get them both. Really dig this a lot. Got all the required keyboards and Rickenbacker bass and guitars. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. How about Celeste? More prog from Italy. Self-titled. Again, Mellotron galore on this. Mellotron and those like kind of romantic, mellow vocals. You go into a dictionary. Oh, some of you are probably like, what the hell's a dictionary? Anyway, go into a dictionary and you look up romantic progressive rock music, right? That picture comes up. This is just kind of like pour yourself a cup of something soothing, nestle up on your couch with your favorite blanket, turn on the fire. I know we're in the middle of summer. Who wants to hear about that now? And put this on. Whew. Great stuff. More Italian. Cherry 5. Blistering prog rock here. No laid back stuff on this one. Awesome. What else we got here? Babylon. Forget where these guys are from. This was on the symphonic label. Great stuff. Very quirky prog. Dig it. What else? Arti and Mistieri. Tilt. As you can imagine, more Italian stuff. This is kind of fusion-y. Fusion and prog. Also had a bunch of really good albums. This is on the Cramps label. I think I got Frankenstein up there. Dig that a lot. And the last one I'm going to talk about today, I know you're probably thinking, no, more. Or, no, we want more. Or maybe you're thinking, no more. Maybe this is too much. I don't know. Acqua Fragile. Or Acqua Fragile. More great Italian prog. Alpha Taurus is another one could have talked about. What else? Semiramis. Maxophone. Jeez, there's so many Italian prog bands. It's crazy. Anyway, that's, I don't know, 25, 30 albums there we discussed. Mentioned a couple other additional ones. You want to see more of this kind of stuff? I can do it. I got so much stuff here. So much stuff. Like I said, maybe it makes sense to do like prog by country. Might make this a little bit easier. A little bit of research on my end, but I could pull it off. So we'll see. But anyway, there's some great obscure prog from the underground from the 70s. There's a shitload more, folks. So if you want to see more just kind of random stuff like this type of shows, I'll do it. If you think the by country kind of format works, I'll do that too. But in the end, we're talking about vintage prog rock, and that's a good thing. And judging by how many hits and how popular my first full-on prog show from the 70s is doing, there's a lot more prog fans out there than most mainstream music fans give us credit for, right? We know who we are. We know what the good stuff is. So anyway, visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're here on the mighty YouTube. So let me know what else you guys want to see. I struggle to find the time to do as many shows as I'd like to. I got this whole list of things that you guys have mentioned that you might want to see, things that I also want to do. It's just a matter of finding the time to sit down and go through the collection and get ready, put it all together and record it. And, there's so many things I want to do. So many more career retrospectives and more cool rants and things. So, but I like to hear the feedback from everyone who watches, and I take all of it very seriously. And you've seen I like to interact with you in the comments section. So if you got something to say, you want to have some dialogue with me, I'm more than happy to oblige. So anyway, till next time, thanks for watching. Tune in very soon. We got more stuff coming, and don't forget to go on the website and read reviews of all sorts of stuff. So till next time, see you. Bye.